Drag and drop. This JavaScript program allows you to pick up a div element, which is placed inside parent element, and reposition it to another place. For convenience, all this is done within one HTML file, without splitting it into three: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. This drag and drop task can be performed using two different methods, and this is the topic of this video. This is the standard HTML template, and we will begin from here. Line 6 contains the title element with the drag and drop v1 title. The live server is running. I am using Firefox, though pressing F12 will bring up the developer tools panel. Let's start with the body element. It contains two child elements. The main, we can see it as a big blue, or to be precise, midnight blue block level element, and the footer at the bottom of the viewport. Inside the main element is our div element with ID equal to div1. All drag and drop will be applied to this div. The draggable attribute must be set to true. This enables drag and drop API. We use three events from drag and drop API: drag start, drag stop, and drop. The footer element will be used to display some info. Inside the footer are two h2 child elements with class attributes set to mouse xy and info. Those are all elements needed. Now we need to style them a bit. This is done within style element. Asterisk is a universal selector. It selects all elements. There is not much to tell. Margin is set to 0 for all elements, and the same for padding. Box sizing border box means that the padding and border are included in the element's total width and height. The main element selector. I use semantic HTML elements whenever it has some sense. Instead of main, it can be any HTML block level element. Width 100 VW. VW stands not for Volkswagen, but for the viewport's width. One viewport width is equal to 1% of the width of the viewport. So 100 VW is all viewport's width, 100%. The same thing goes with height, except we left 20% of the viewport's height for the footer, which comes next. Position relative means the element will be positioned according to the normal flow, and then can be offset relative to itself, based on the values of the top, right, bottom, and left. Why we need to set position to relative? Because its child element div1 will have position set to absolute, and will be positioned relative to its closest positioned ancestor, which is this main element. Background color. Feel free to pick whatever color you want. I take midnight blue. Footer selector. Another block level semantic HTML element. Width 100 VW will take all viewports width, height 20 VW. 80% of the main height plus 20% of the footer height equals to 100%, meaning all viewports height will be taken by main and footer elements. Background color dark slate gray. Color beige to let his two child h2 elements with some text put in be readable on dark slate gray background. Hashtag div1 is an ID selector that selects an element with ID equal to div1, our drag and drop element. Width 180 pixels, height 120 pixels, position absolute, means the element will be removed from the document's flow and is positioned relative to its closest positioned ancestor. In our case, this is the main element. That is why we set the main position to relative. We need this to reposition element div1 using top and left properties. Background maroon, brownish red color according to Google, and it is brownish red indeed. That is all for styling. Now to the most important part, to JavaScript. To facilitate understanding program structure, finding errors, later modifications, and so on, I prefer to visually divide JavaScript program into sections like global variables, events, and logic. Not much to tell here. HTML elements main in div with id equal to div1 assigned to variables. Declaration of mouse x and mouse y variables. They will hold mouse cursor coordinates within the viewport. Next, events section. Mouse event on the entire document. Console log will print mouse move string in console every time the mouse move event is fired. Client X read-only property of mouse events is the horizontal coordinate within the viewport. The same for the vertical coordinate. Line 51 selects the h2 element with class mouse xy and places inside it text with mouse cursor coordinates. Line 52 does the same, but for div1 element left and top properties. The next three events are part of drag and drop API and were enabled by setting the attribute draggable to true. From the drag start event we need nothing except to console log string drag stat to let us know that this event is fired. Drag over event is fired when an element is being dragged over a valid drop target every few hundred milliseconds. We need to cancel this event to let fire out our drop event. Canceling is done by the prevent default method of the event interface. Drop event happens when the left mouse button is released. All positioning logic happens here. As you can see, between drag start and drag drop events, when the div1 element is moved around but not dropped, mouse move event stops firing, and the mouse x variable will hold the horizontal mouse cursor position when the drag start event is fired. Hence current mouse cursor position minus mouse x will be equal to the horizontal distance div1 element should be moved to be placed on the new spot. That is what variable dx is. The same for the vertical coordinates. Lastly, we update the left and top properties of the div1 element. On the first run, those properties hold empty strings. Hence I use div1 element.style.left logical OR operator 0 as pass int argument to let it return 0 in this case. Line 67 console log div1 element properties left and top to demonstrate that they hold empty strings when the program starts. Or, as a second option, you can assign these properties to zeros in line 35. Style equal to top 0, left 0. Now we can get rid of this OR trick. Let's check it out. It all works. And that is all for the first variation of drag and drop. Here goes the second drag and drop program variation. Until line 45 everything is the same as in the first part. div1 mouse dist x and div1 mouse dist y variables will be used to hold the distance between the left top corner of the div1 element and the mouse cursor at the moment when the user presses the left mouse button, or to be precise, when the mouse down event will be fired. Mouse move event. Variables mouse x and mouse y assigned to the current mouse cursor position. In the next line we select element h2 with class attribute mouse xy and use this element to display the current mouse coordinates. In line 51, div1 mouse dest x and div1 mouse dist y are displayed. In line 52, we use variables div1 mouse dist x as a flag to check if it holds the value, and if it doesn't, we return. Not the best practice, I should use special flag variable only for this purpose, but let it go. If div1 mouse dist x is not undefined, we continue on line 53 and 54, where we assign div1 element properties left and top, repositioning it to the current cursor position, taking into the account the initial mouse cursor element distance. Mouse down event. Here we assign div1 mouse dist x and div1 mouse dist y to the distance between the element's top left corner and the mouse cursor position. Mouse up event. When the left mouse button is released, the drag and drop operation ends. Remember, div1 mouse dist x is used not only to hold the horizontal distance value, but as a flag to check out during the mouse move event in the drag and drop if the drag and drop operation is active. That's why at the end of drag and drop we set it to undefined. And that's it. Now we can see the final result.